fatigue is the biggest problem facing FC Barcelona right now. Now, we know they've played a ton of football recently, and the problem is they're only going to be playing more, and it's only going to get more and more important as the year goes on. However, the boys are showing a lot of signs of fatigue. They're tired, and of course they are. They are all playing a ton of football, and that's draining, especially when they play in a Hansi Flick system that can be pretty intense at times. And it's a little unfortunate that it's all piling up and happening right now, but that is the fact. The team is dealing with some fatigue issues very clearly, and that's different than just being tired. Their body, their muscles are straight up fatigued and need a rest. That can be done in multiple different ways by, playing less minutes or by just taking a load off in the training session, but it is beginning to look like they need a serious amount of time off, which means they're going to have to be sacrificed somehow, specifically for some very important players in the team. Pedri, Lamine Yamal, and Koundé. More importantly than anybody else right now, I think. I think everybody else might show some signs of being tired, but honestly, I do not think it's going to be nearly as much of an issue as the other guys, especially for Kubarsi, who's gotten some minutes off and really hasn't shown too much of a lack of ability at all this season when he does get tired or when you would expect him to get fatigued. It just doesn't happen for him, which makes me think it's less of an issue for him than it is for some of these other guys, especially the guys that are going to be pressing so much, like Pedri, like potentially Rafinha, but Lamine Yamal and Pedri most specifically right now. We've seen Lewandowski get minutes off as well, with Ferran Torres coming into form a little bit, which has been good for him, but Lamine Yamal has played pretty much every minute of the season so far. He has played more minutes this year already than he did last season, and there's still something like 10 matches left if we win out. And so it's a lot of football for one kid, especially a 17-year-old who played a ton, and he straight up just has not been playing as well. I don't know what that is. It probably has something a little bit to do with that there's no Balde on the left side. I think that's part of the reason Rafinha has been playing poorer or didn't play great against Dortmund. Just he isn't the same threat when he doesn't have an overlapping fullback or someone that can fill in space next to him and support him. He just can't really do as much and is not nearly as effective. And it's just the way Hansi Flick's setup works right now, that they can only have someone fill that second striker-ish, inside winger role if you are having some sort of width on the left. And that comes usually from Balde, but Gerard Martin can't really fill that space in very well, especially when he's being pressed high. So that makes it a little bit more difficult for Rafinha, and I think a lot of the issues he's facing right now are just mental, and if he goes and scores in La Liga in these next upcoming matches, I think that's enough to flip the switch. We just need to see this guy score. He needs to get over this block that is probably going on in his mind, and he should be fine. He's also older, more used to playing a lot of football, so I think he's in a better position physically to handle what is coming in the next few weeks, where I believe we're going to have to play 5 matches in 15 days or something along the lines of that during the Inter Milan Real Madrid matches that are coming. I think it's literally Supercopa or Copa del Rey, Inter Milan, a match against Valladolid, I believe, which is good because they're a very low level team in La Liga. We beat them 7-something earlier this year, so I'm not too worried about that. But Valladolid, Inter Milan again, and then Real Madrid again. So there's so much football back-to-back that these guys are going to need to rest. And right now is the time for that to happen, especially for Lamine Yamal, Pedri, and Koundé. Because I've said my case for Lamine, but Pedri, he has been playing a lot of football. Hansi tried to give him a little bit of rest against Dortmund, which I think is good. He needs to get more of a rest, though. This guy's played way too much football, and we're beginning to see the signs of it. We've seen the signs of this in the past, and especially with the way Hansi asks him to play, usually pressing up on the midfield pretty high for our opponents. It makes it a very stressful for his body performance. And so we need to see Pedri get some more minutes off, whether that's, completely not playing or not being included in the squad list or being brought on late in matches if we need the support. I think it's something like that. Well, but with Dani Olmo coming back, I think that gives a little bit of promise that Pedri can maybe take a little bit more time off, be a little bit more comfortable not playing with him, because Dani Olmo is so proficient on the ball in a way that Fermin Lopez just really isn't. Not that he isn't great in his own right. But Dani Olmo has a little bit of that La Pausa, that understanding, that ability to work out of pressure and, reload, recycle possession and work with the team that way that I haven't really seen from a lot of players, bar Pedri, this season. So with Danny coming back and everything, I think that's a really good option. Potentially playing him deeper or, throwing Gavi back there with Danny could be a good combination. I don't know how well the Gavi Fermin Lopez combination works right now. So having Dani Olmo there might even help Gavi become a little bit of a better player right now, because we haven't really seen the best of Gavi this season, which is a little unfortunate, but we're going to need to see it to help support Pedri in the next coming matches. Frankie de Jong's a different case. He hasn't played a ton of football this year, and he's played a lot recently, but again, he's 26 or 27 years old. His body is more used to playing a lot of football. I would expect him to be able to handle it a little bit better than the younger guys like Pedri and Lamine. And now the different case here is Koundé, because he's played 104 matches in a row or something like that. It's ridiculous, the amount of football he's played. And we're beginning to see the signs that it might be a little too much. Like, realistically, he's not playing terribly, but he really did not look good against Dortmund. And taking a rest is not going to hurt him. It's not like he's running on momentum like you could see a striker or someone like that, really. Maybe a keeper or something, but he's not running on any momentum right now, especially. So I think benching him against, I believe our next match is Celta Vigo. I think that's a great option to just give him a breather, let him relax and take a step back. Let Hector Fort get in there. And, the problem is you can't really rotate all these guys at once. I think you can't not play Lamine, Pedri, and Koundé. That not only weakens that entire right side, but the team is just not used to playing without any of them, let alone 1, 2, or 3 of them. It's just too much. So Hansi's going to have to figure out a way in these next 2 La Liga matches that, yes, are important, but are against weaker competition than Real Madrid and Inter Milan. That's a fact. That Mallorca is having a better season than they have. I think they're in upper middle table, like 6th to 8th range last time I checked. They're in a pretty good spot, so they're not going to be an easy team. Celta Vigo is a little bit lower in the league, will be a little bit better of a fight. We've had our struggles against the guys like Iago Aspas in the past, and so it's not a cakewalk. But these two are the most important matches to come, because we need to see Hansi rest guys here. Hansi has done a pretty decent job of warming players up from injury, not putting them immediately back into the flow of the matches, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. I don't necessarily know how well he's managed the minutes of specifically Lamine Yamal and Pedri. I think everyone else has been managed pretty well. Maybe Kubarsi hasn't, but with Christensen potentially coming back, that can help Kubarsi and Inigo Martinez work that out as well. Even if Araujo isn't, your favorite right now, guys. I think he's a little bit of a scapegoat a lot. But I think having Christensen back into the flow of everything will only help take more pressure off the back line, to a point where I'm not really worried about it. But I think we need to see Koundé get a break. And that's going to be a little bit tough for Hansi to do, or manage any of this, because the fact that Balde is not in. So we've already lost one of our starters in the back line, and now you expect him to take out another starter, and I'm asking him to take out the most important midfielder in the world and the most talented winger in the world, basically, off the pitch at once, and that's not possible. So I'm really curious to see how Hansi manages it, and if he does rest these guys. I'm not confident he will. We saw him take Lamine Yamal out a little bit earlier against Dortmund than we've seen him do recently, which I think is good. I think it's time to see Ansu Fati. I think Hansi's really just giving him minutes, or gave him those minutes against Dortmund, because he probably just wants to make him look like they want him, so that they can sell him for a higher price, and they want to make him look useful, I would assume, before they sell him, is the way it feels to me. But I think these are the minutes that we need him out there. We don't have wingers in this side. That's one of the things we called the most for over the summer. And yeah, Dani Olmo can be great, but he's not a winger. We saw him try to play for the Rafinha position when he came on against Dortmund, and he can play wide. He's not the best. He's not a touchline winger in the way Lamine Yamal can be, in the way Dembele was, in the way Nico Williams would have been. And that's part of the reason we called for it so much over the summer, but we desperately need it right now, because there are no subs for Lamine, basically. The only sub is moving Rafinha over and then playing probably Ferran Torres on the left, or Danny potentially, or Fermin Lopez can play there as well. But the problem with that is that that's just different than what we're used to. Having Rafinha on the right, he's not the greatest touchline winger. He's not going to take guys on super well. He's a runner. And he can play a good ball like Lamine can every once in a while, but he's not nearly as consistent with that. And very like from our high peak, I'd rather drop down a few steps from our best to play good football and manage the minutes of these guys so that we can walk into those more important matches and succeed. But it's all coming down to these next two matches. And if Hansi doesn't manage these minutes well, I really, really think we can struggle against Inter Milan and Real Madrid. Now, both of those teams are not perfect. I know we like to make Inter Milan look like this scary team because we've had a lot of problems with them in the past. I've seen a bunch of compilations of how they basically robbed that group stage match against us. They didn't. The refs did, but the refs did a terrible job in that group stage match under Xavi. Was that last? No, that was 2 years ago. Yeah. And it was absolutely catastrophic with the handball from Dumfries blocking the header from Ansu. Sergio Busquets got absolutely studded very high up the leg by Kalinoglu, I believe. And there are a few other things that really went wild with that. But nonetheless, I think their weaknesses can be exploited by Barcelona in the same way they can, take advantage of what Barcelona does and by playing this high line and by maybe struggling against, 3 backs or 5 backs. But they also leave a lot of space in behind. They are much more open than you'd expect a team as willing to sit deep as they are. So I think it's going to be a great battle. I'm more worried about it than I am for the Clásico. But we need these guys to be rested for these matches, and that's the most important part. Most important takeaway: this fatigue idea is going to be the decider of the season, as it is most years. That's why we've seen Manchester City, Pep Guardiola build this insane depth at City there, and Barcelona have the depth in some areas that have made it helpful, but right now that depth is either injured or in the wrong area. Like the midfield has a lot of depth, but Pedri can't be replaced even with having all of that depth, as we saw against Dortmund, where Gavi just wasn't the same, especially under big pressure like that. And then we don't have a winger. We don't have winger depth in any way. And you could talk about Ferran Torres maybe, or Rafinha moving over, and you can have those conversations, but it's really not as ideal as we'd like. So finding a way to manage these minutes in the next coming games will decide Barcelona's season. So we'll just see how they handle it. But thank you guys for watching. If you guys did enjoy this, though, I have a couple vlogs up from Barcelona that you guys can still check out. And, I'll see you guys on the weekend. I think we're playing on Saturday, Celta. Hopefully we put it together, and I'll see you guys there. Peace.